Hi, Analisa 6 here with the Lady of Leisure and the Sober Curator to bring you the horoscope and astrology forecast for March 2024. Horoscopes for all the signs. I'm not doing a horoscope for March. I guess I am. It's not called that. Astrology forecast. Hi, I'm back. I haven't done these since October. My entire life did a whole 180 and everything's new. You can see that I've got a new place that I'm living, and if you've been watching the videos from the past. So I'm in my new apartment and um sitting on my new couch and just hanging out. I'm gonna try to do this as best I can after taking so much time off. I mean, it's been 5 months, I guess, almost 4 months since I've done these. And so I am just kind of raw dogging life right now and trying to get back into the swing of things. I'm really excited to start doing horoscopes again. I've missed it. I've definitely been paying attention to the astrology over the last few months, but in a very self-focused way because of everything going on in my personal life. And so I haven't really been looking at it in a collective, from a collective standpoint. And I'm looking forward to offering these again. A couple of things that I kind of want to share and announce. Also my hair color. I went back to black. I used to have black hair. I had black hair for like 10 years. And when the Venus retrograde happened last year in Leo, I really was contemplating going back to dark hair, and I just couldn't make up my mind. I was like, don't do it during Venus retrograde. Just wait and hang out with what you've got. Like, just deal with it, don't make any decisions. And then when my life kind of took a turn, I was like, I'm going to go back to black because that feels right. And it does. It feels like me. I haven't felt like me in a long time. So it's been a nice feeling to go back to something that feels more in alignment for this chapter of my life. I'm feeling really judgmental over my hair because it's just not a good hair day for me today, but I'm happy about the color. So a lot's changed. Collectively we're shifting a lot of energy. Pluto finally made its station into Aquarius at the start of the year. So we had Pluto kind of going back and forth between Aquarius and Capricorn last year in 2023. And it was the last little stint of Pluto and Capricorn. And then at the beginning of this year, January 21st, Pluto finally made its way into Aquarius. And so now we're going to have Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years. And Aquarius energy is fixed air, and it's the sign that represents community and also revolutionary ideas and change. And so Pluto, the planet that represents transformation and transmutation of energy, entering the sign that represents change, revolutionary ideas, breaking away from the old into the new. We're definitely in a new chapter of humanity, a new chapter of life on a personal level and a collective level. So 2024, huge shifts happening for all of us. There's a lot happening politically around the world, and that's always happened. There's always things happening politically, but we are seeing a lot happening right now in a big way. And that's going to continue. Those stories are going to continue to evolve, as Pluto makes its way through the sign of Aquarius. So one of the things that you can do in your own chart is look at your own personal birth chart and see where you have Aquarius energy, and that shift, wherever Pluto's shifting into your, into the where you have Aquarius in your chart is where there's big transformation happening for you. You're at the beginning of it, and it's going to be happening. The story is going to be going for the next 20 years. So it's a big deal for all of us because we just left a story and we're entering a new one. And can I just say, like, how poignant that is for me on a personal level, just because everything in my life literally did a 180, but also I'm doing readings for other people and just talking to other people in my life who are also experiencing a big shift in similar ways. With that said, the other announcement that I wanted to make is that I am offering readings again. So I just spent the last year and a half not working. And because of what transpired in my life, I need to work. So I am offering tarot and astrology readings again. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can visit my website, ladyofleisure.com, and contact me through there. You can also email me at analisa6@ladyofleisure.com to book a reading. I do all of my bookings through email. Yeah, just email me and we can talk about it. The prices vary depending on what the service is that you want to get. I'm offering everything at a lower price than I used to because of the economy and also just getting back into the swing of things. So it's a really good time to book with me right now for that reason. Okay, so let's get into the month. We're at March. I know I talked a little bit about the beginning of the year just with the Pluto shift because I didn't do astrology forecast for the last 3 months. And so I just kind of wanted to touch base on the fact that we are in Pluto Aquarius land now. And we start out March. So usually the way that I do these, if you're new here, hi, I I wing it. I don't do a lot of prep beforehand because the prep itself is so intense and exhausting that by the time I've done the prep, I'm like, I may as well have just been talking about it as I was doing it. So I basically just read what's going on and tell you what's going on. And I'm sure there's some things that I'll miss for that reason because I'm not as meticulous about it, but it's just so much. These videos are like an hour long just with the tip anyways. So that's how I go about it. Every astrologer does it differently. This works for me. Maybe I'll change it in the future. So let's just kind of start out looking at the chart for the first. Today's the 5th, but we'll go ahead and start at the beginning of the month. Get me larger here. And we'll look at this chart. So this is the chart for March 1st. So we start out March in Pisces season always. So we've got the sun in Pisces, but what's different, about 2024 is that we don't always start out March with Saturn in Pisces. Saturn has been in Pisces since last year, and we start out the month with Saturn and the sun actually in a pretty close conjunction. It's not exact, but it's within 1 degree. So Saturn on the sun. We also have Mercury in this mix. So we've got the sun sandwiched between Mercury and Saturn here. So, this might be the start of March might feel very ungrounded, even though Saturn is considered to be an anchor or a grounding force. In Pisces, it's not a super grounded energy. Pisces is the mutable water sign that rules our, I'm going to get judged for saying creativity because people are going to be like, Leo rules creativity, but Pisces rules the 12th house, which is the area of the chart that has to do with the subconscious, has to do with dreams, illusions, fantasy, escapism through art, escapism through alcohol, escapism through meditation, transcendental experiences. And it's the sign that also a lot of us in recovery or us alcoholics, drug addicts, addicts in general tend to want to live in. We tend to want to live in Pisces energy. And since, these get posted on the Sober Curator and it's a recovery focused audience, this type of awareness around astrology transits, like when we're in heavy Pisces energy, it can be really beneficial to know that because those of us who are addicts and who struggle with substance abuse or any kind of addiction tendencies where we're trying to escape the mundane, that energy is elevated for us during Pisces transits. And so, it's not uncommon for people to relapse when Saturn is passing through Pisces, or to also experience, like, if you're not in recovery and you haven't been sober for a long time, it's not uncommon when Saturn's in Pisces for you to hit your rock bottom with it and to be brought into some kind of situation where you have to face those inner demons and face the subconscious fears that you have of why you're trying to escape reality in the first place. If you're not an addict or you don't identify with that, Saturn in Pisces can be a really constructive energy. And it can be a constructive for addicts too. Like those of us who are in recovery, who are doing the work and who are leaning into our tools, Saturn in Pisces can benefit us when it comes to our creativity, our art. It's a really positive energy for artists. So if you've got a project that you're working on and you need that kind of stability and discipline in executing that creative project, Saturn can come in and really help make that happen. And so great energy for musicians and artists and even, people that maybe do creative writing. Like there's we think about, I'm going to be kind of all over the place because of just how my brain is functioning right now with the trauma of my life. But so I apologize in advance for that. But if we think about like, where does creativity live? Like, where do ideas live? They live in the imaginal realm, which is what Pisces rules, the imagination, the imaginal realm where anything is possible, right? And Saturn, being, the planet that rules Aquarius and Capricorn, is kind of what brings all of that down into reality. And Saturn also rules kind of like the discipline that we need to bring all of that into the physical form. And so we have this combination of the imagination, the imaginal realm, and Saturn, and being able to kind of, you know, say, here you go, here's my idea in the flesh, or here's my idea in reality. So we've got that. The sun, you know, often represents energy and where we have the most ability to channel kind of our essence, like our vitality, our energetic essence, into something that's useful for us on an individual level. It shines a light, you know, it's there to kind of say, like, here I am, this is what we're focusing on. So all things Pisces, like, this is what we're focusing on. And it brings vitality and energy into the mix. And so that paired with Saturn, you know, we see that. Again, there's a downside to Saturn transits a lot of times too. So I'm talking about the positives, but if you're not consciously doing that work or choosing to be on that side of it, the other thing that can happen with the Saturn Sun conjunction is that we're more inclined towards depression. We're more inclined to feelings of isolation and loneliness, which then can be another reason why we're more prone to things like alcohol or drug relapse. With Mercury in the mix, Mercury rules the mind and our communication. And Pisces also has an energy that lends itself towards fantasy and illusions. And so with Mercury here, Mercury is actually considered to be in its detriment in Pisces because it's the ruler of Virgo, which is the opposite. We lack discernment here. Things are foggy, things are confusing. It can be great for meditation. It can be great for dream work. It could be great for art and trying to channel ideas into these creative, endeavors. But when it comes to us deciphering things clearly and speaking about it clearly, it's not a strong energy. It is a strong energy in the sense that we're more living in this elusive realm. It's not a strong energy when it comes to feeling grounded, clear, or discerning on things. It's like the moon card in the tarot. So the moon card in the tarot is ruled by the moon in Pisces. And that's an energy that, you know, often when it comes up, we're in a time in our lives where we feel very confused about the future or what we're doing. And the guidance of the moon card often is that we need to get really in touch and clear with our subconscious and what's happening below the surface. And, you know, therapy is really positive for that. And working with a therapist that does dream interpretation or is good at, can't find my moon card in here, I was going to pull it up, but working with a therapist that is really good at deciphering kind of what is happening below the surface for you versus, you know, just looking at kind of the mundane black and whiteness of life in terms of what's good, what's bad, you know, where do we feel fulfilled, where do we not feel fulfilled? Like, those questions are good, but a lot of times there's deeper stuff going on. Here's the moon card. It's so funny. I'm using the Rider-Waite deck and I was actually looking for the Mother of Peace image. I don't have my Mother of Peace deck on my lap right now, but this is the moon card. So, you know, we enter March kind of in that elusive state. We also enter March with Venus and Mars making a wide conjunction in Aquarius. So we still are kind of working through some of this Aquarius energy with these two dancing. Venus represents our need for connection and relationships. And a lot of times we think of partnership with Venus. That's what it rules, is romantic connection and partnership. But in the sign of Aquarius, Aquarius rules community. Aquarius rules friendship circles, group associations, political associations. And so with Venus and Aquarius, we often we desire connection through the group and through friendships. We also desire to be a part of a cause that we're passionate about and with like-minded like-minded people, you know, about whatever the group think is that we're attributing to. So like for me, let's see, actually, when did Venus enter Aquarius? Because this is when that energy started for us on a collective. Way out. So Venus entered Aquarius, it looks like in February. So middle of February, February 17th is when that started in Aquarius, close to Aquarius season starting. And so, in Aquarius, sorry. What was the last day of Aquarius season? The last couple of days of Aquarius season is when Venus entered Aquarius. So, we're in that kind of feeling right now where those political identities, those group identities are really important to us. And kind of like, are we surrounded by people that we want to be surrounded by? Are we connecting with people And I feel that I've had a really social last month, and I do feel like it was social prior to that. We were in, Aquarius season prior to that. But if you've been feeling kind of a need to connect in that way, that's elevated at the beginning of March. Mars being here also activates that in terms of elevating it, but Mars is a different energy. Mars is conflict oriented, action oriented. It's ambitious, wherever Mars is where we feel kind of like a drive towards something. And in Aquarius, Aquarius again represents friendships, groups, political associations, and it also represents revolution, revolutionary change. And Mars, is the planet that rules war and action. So if we have this active energy influencing change, we're more aggressive towards the change that we want to make. Also with Venus in the mix and in this kind of friendship area, a lot of times this means that there could be conflict within friendship dynamics. Energy could be elevated in group dynamics that is sometimes reactive in a way that's a little overkill. So I think that if you're in a friendship circle and there's been a lot of drama or a lot of butting of heads or a need to confront things and talk about things and work things out in a specific way, Mars is here kind of pushing that, and it's a driver of change in Aquarius. So things that need to change in our relationship dynamics, like it's pushing that. So that's something there. And again, Pluto in Aquarius. So we've got a lot of that energy too, a lot of change energy starting out March. Another thing starting March out is we've got Chiron in the North Node making a conjunction, and they've been kind of dancing for a little bit and will continue to do that for a little bit longer. Chiron's been in Aries for a while now, and then we had the nodal change into the Aries Libra polarity. I believe that started last year. And so, let's talk about kind of what the frequency of Aries. So Aries is the cardinal fire sign that Mars rules. We just talked about all this energy that Mars symbolizes. It's action oriented, it's confrontational. Aries on its own has a lot, it rules the first house. So the first house has to do with our identity and our relationship to self. And so with the North Node is pointing us towards this. It's the destiny point, the karmic point. What are we pointing towards? Aries is saying it's time to learn how to be an individual. It's time to learn how to identify with the self in an autonomous way, in a strong way. What do I want? Who am I? What am I all about? Away from the collective, away from the other. The South Node being in Libra, the South Node is the past, it's kind of what we're trying to move away from in a way so that we can balance that polarity. So that, in astrology, we're always looking to integrate polarity. And so we don't want to look at this as throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It doesn't mean you don't need community. It doesn't mean you don't need partnership. It doesn't mean abandon everything you've learned that's valuable about partnership and coexisting with other people. What it means is that, okay, you've done that for a while. Now it's time to do this other thing. So how do you maintain positive community and relationships, whether it's friendships, romantic partnerships, marriage, business partnerships, and still have a strong sense of self and still be able to individuate yourself and work from what you want in an autonomous way without compromising yourself for the latter? This is a lesson that's really hard for a lot of people, I've found. And I think for all of us at different stages of our life, especially depending on how our relationship is being defined. So what's going to happen for a lot of people during this nodal transit, specifically, especially with Chiron here, we'll get into Chiron a little bit more, is that we're going to question our relationships with others, whether it's romantic partnership, business partnership, or best friendships. That's what Libra represents. And we're going to ask ourselves, are these relationships in alignment with the direction that I want to go in my life on a selfish level or a personal level? And I don't mean selfish in a negative way. I just mean in like, this is you, this is your life, this is who you are. Like, what do you want, in your life? And the signs that are the most affected by these nodal shifts, this question, are the cardinal signs. So Aries and Libra, you guys are being hit hardcore because it's in Aries and Libra. But then we also have Cancer and Capricorn, which are the water and earth cardinal signs, and these nodes are squaring those. So if your sun, moon, rising, descending, your angles, all of that are in those signs, or you have planetary placements that are strong in those signs, those things are getting hit during this nodal journey. And those are the questions that are being asked. Are my relationships supporting what I want? And if not, what do I do about it? Do I leave the relationship that I'm in and fulfill my own personal desires and selfish wants? And selfish, again, not in a negative connotation, just in this is what I need or what I want. Do I completely sever ties and end these relationships? Or do I find a way to coexist within my relationship and work on that in my relationship while still figuring out who I am and what I want, without necessarily having to throw the baby out with the bathwater on everything? Everybody's journey is going to be different in terms of where you're at in your life, your maturity level, and your emotional evolution, and also the nature of your relationship. If you have a really toxic, codependent relationship, then you might be really getting pushed into that Aries individuation where you feel like you need to leave that partnership in order to find yourself. And so let's get into Chiron with this nodal placement. So, and the reason why I'm spending so much time talking about this too is that we have eclipse energy, in Aries and Libra. And so the eclipse, these nodes are what that eclipse portal is linked to. And it's these eclipses that start these cycles, so we had eclipse season start last year in this nodal placement, and that was what activated it. And then we're still in that story. And there's still things that are coming through on that. And again, Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, you guys are getting affected the most by this. But of course, there's a lot of us getting affected by it because we also have planets in those areas. And we can also end up being the collateral damage and a lot of this change that's happening for the cardinal dominant people. So we all inadvertently get affected as a collective, regardless of what is driving the ship, or whoever's the catalyst in it, right? And we're all here to learn this lesson too, somewhere in our birth chart. It's not just, the person that might be experiencing it the heaviest. So Chiron, this planetoid that is on the North Node, is associated with wounds that need healing. So trauma, essentially. And Chiron, has been in Aries for a while. So if we think about Aries represents the identity, the individuation of self, it's also our relationship to self, Aries. So the personal relationship that we're having with ourselves. And with Chiron passing through here, it brings up wounds around that, wounds that need healing. And we're all going through some collective version of that, an individual version of that. And then people, again, that have, their Chiron returns happening. It's like a Generation X, kind of thing happening right now. And we're all in this journey of like, who am I? How do I find myself with Chiron here? And with the North Node, and it conjunct the North Node, that's really highlighted right now. And it's especially highlighted for the Aries individual. And I should say for fire signs too, because all the fire dominant people are also getting, these aspects hit in a major way. And identity is really important to fire dominant people. Leo, Aries, Sagittarius, we all take identity really seriously. And so if something isn't in alignment for us on an identity level, we do tend to get really reactive and need to make drastic changes because fire signs are very reactive. So while this conjunction's happening, there might be deep buried identity wounds that come up. And, when we think about identity, at least for me, I think of ego wounds. And Aries, Leo, especially, and I would say Capricorn too, I would say Libra too, the cardinal signs, especially, I think have a lot of ego investment. Success is a really big focus for cardinal signs. And so if you're not reaching those benchmarks or those milestones in the way that you want, it's really hurtful to the ego. All signs have that. We all have ego. I'm not saying that cardinal signs are the only signs that are egocentric, but I think that the cardinal signs being the signs that push things forward, initiate, drive, there's a lot of pressure that the cardinal signs put on themselves to be a certain level of successful and accomplished. And if you don't feel like you're reaching that level of accomplishment or living to that sense of self or those goals, it can feel like a really big failure in a major way. And the fire signs tend to also have, Leo specifically, has a lot of need for validation and pride around that validation, pride around that success. And so Leo's a sign that's getting hit a lot by this nodal Chiron conjunction, and Sagittarius is as well. And Sagittarius can be a very competitive sign. And Sagittarius also wants a lot of freedom. And so, you know, these nodal placements are also triggering maybe some of those underlying freedoms that the fire energy needs. Now, that South node placement in Libra is also activating things for all the air signs. So Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. So there's also a lot of change here. And, you know, Libra is focused on relationships, like partnerships. Aquarius is focused on relationships that have to do with the group, friendship circles, and, you know, organizations and those types of things. And Gemini is it can, you know, represent collective thought, collective, you know, mental processes, communication, like how we communicate with all of that. So those things are all getting highlighted. It's so big and multifaceted and complex, you know, and it's, again, like we're all getting hit by this stuff, whether you're a water sign, earth sign, fire sign, or air sign, but it really does activate these specific placements more intentionally with cardinal signs, fire signs. And, you know, the South node energy is kind of wanting us to get a little bit out of the codependent relationship with it and less about what everybody else is doing, what everybody else thinks, and more into but who am I? What do I want? What do I think? We're being pushed more into this personal healing, I should say, identity healing. There's a guy on Instagram that I followed off and on. He's a photographer, but he does a bunch of spiritual posting and, you know, considers himself an energy alchemist kind of personality. I think he's a Leo too, but he has some kind of thing that he calls identity alchemy, which I really like because I think that's really accurate for kind of the frequency of what's happening with these nodal placements. Like we're in this identity alchemy kind of place. Like how do we transmute and change who we are? And I think we're always doing that because we're you know, we're not fixed people, you know, like things are, I mean, we can be fixed signs, which makes us more fixed people, but you know, we get born as these little babies and then we grow into these old, if we're lucky to live that long, we grow into these old physical beings, then we die, right? So it's like, we're not fixed. Like there's constant evolution and change. We're constantly watching ourselves age and change and having to evolve with whatever that is. And I think that identity alchemy is a part of that, right? Like identity alchemy can go into how we put ourselves together, but it also is like the change that gravity has, you know, on us physically, and then also experiences have on us, you know, in terms of our soul, our self on a metaphysical level, right? So that's what's happening a lot right now. Starting March, I'm just like at the beginning of March. In terms of that. Okay, I'm going to start pumping through this because I've already talked for a really long time and we're just at the beginning of March. So, you know, let's kind of start going through each day. So we've got, I mean, is that how I want to talk about this? It's usually how I do this. I go through all the days, and part of me is kind of like, do we really need to go through all the days? I feel like I covered a lot of ground already with some of this energy. I'm like identity alchemy and kind of, finding ourselves is a big theme for March. So let's talk about some of the transits, I guess, throughout the week. I feel like I'm just re-emphasizing stuff. So the major transits starting on March 1st, we've got the Sun in Pisces making a sextile to Jupiter in Taurus, Venus in Aquarius making a sextile to Chiron in Aries. So again, you know, Venus relationships, Chiron wounds around identity. We're really questioning kind of what are our ideals around this? What do we think about our relationships in relation to who we are, what we want? Are we surrounding ourselves with the people that we want to be surrounded by? Political associations, having Aquarius there, you know, activism gets highlighted a lot when Venus is in Aquarius. Sun making a harmonious aspect to Jupiter and Taurus, great energy for art. You want to be creative, start and march out with such a great energy for that. Let's go ahead and flash forward to March 3rd, because this is where we have our next major transit. We have Venus squaring Uranus. So Venus squaring Uranus usually means that there's some kind of surprise energy that happens within a relationship dynamic. Some change takes place within a relationship dynamic. This could be a partnership, but because it's an Aquarius, it could also be a group, association, friendship circle, that kind of stuff. Something a little bit unexpected may take place. We also have a last quarter moon at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. Last quarter moons represent the need to release something or let something go. And in the sign of Sagittarius, again, our values and our belief systems get highlighted in Sagittarius. And then in Aquarius, like this Venus and Aquarius energy has a lot to do with how we do that kind of intellectually in the world and with other people. And so again, like we might be asking ourselves, am I surrounding myself with the right people? Is the work that I'm doing in the world in alignment? Is the values that I have in alignment with what my beliefs are? You know, a lot of that stuff comes up. And so I guess for me, like if I were to talk about it, I know for me, like it's really important. Like I'm looking for work right now, you know, and I work with animals, and there's a lot of different schools of thought in the field of study that I have aligned myself with. Um, I'm a dog trainer. I work with dogs, and there's a lot of different training modalities that I don't agree with. And so looking for a job, it's really hard because, you know, I might talk to somebody on the phone and it's going really well and this job sounds great until it gets down to our philosophy about dogs and what we think is ethical. And I'm not going to work for a company that, you know, has aligned themselves with techniques that I've purposefully removed myself from, and that I have a whole education that I've paid a lot of money for to align myself with. I'm not going to just go and like throw that all away to do something that's not in alignment with my ethical code, right? But that's hard because it's like I need a job and I need to make money. So those are kind of the things that come up when we have Sagittarius and Aquarius energy, is like what values are we willing to let go of or compromise or sacrifice that aren't in alignment with what we want to do moving forward? How much integrity do we have around that? You know, there's some stuff like that I'm okay with, you know, not necessarily in the dog world, but in life, you know, like I had a car with leather seats. I'm vegan, you know, I don't really wear leather, but I really wanted this car and the car had leather seats. So I was like, you know what? Leather seats are actually really great for working with dogs because the hair doesn't embed in them. You know, there's like little things like that. I'm not perfect, you know, but those are the things like with last quarter moon in Sagittarius, like, are you living in alignment with your goals and your values? What are your values, you know? And religion comes up, spirituality comes up, you know, are you on a quest for some deeper understanding? Like, do you need to be more in alignment with your spiritual goals, you know, that kind of stuff? Or maybe you've been a part of a religion that you no longer are feeling in alignment with, and you know it's time for you to venture off and do something else. That's last quarter moon energy. um the fourth, we have Mercury in Pisces making a sextile to Uranus in Taurus. And again, this energy, whenever Uranus is present, there's usually some kind of shock or surprise. And today's the 5th. And so this energy started yesterday, but we're still feeling it today. And one of the things that was really interesting to me about this specific transit is Mercury rules communication, and it rules our technology as well. And Uranus is that surprise, something's changing, some kind of thing is happening that we're not expecting. Or, you know, from a personal standpoint, we could say we have like an epiphany or some kind of insight, you know, happens in some kind of way. But one of the things that happened today was Instagram and Facebook, like the whole Meta kind of platform went down. And of course, the astrologer in me is like, oh, what's happening with Mercury? You know, that might have been part of why that happened. And obviously, there's like solar flare stuff that maybe could be happening, but more scientific. But we have the Mercury sextile to Uranus energy in the sky right now. So I just thought that was kind of funny because it's like, surprise, technology on this platform is down. Just little things like that, you know, can happen. Also good energy for art, you know, feeling inspired, having kind of a insight of like, oh, this is amazing. I all of a sudden am having this idea about something. I think it's a good songwriting energy or creative writing energy too, with the Mercury Pisces placement. Let's see, I'm just making sure I'm not skipping over any moon stuff yet. Okay, so we're on the 7th now. Did I miss anything on the 6th? Let's go back to the 6th. So on the 6th, we have Mars making a sextile to Chiron and Aries. So Mars and Aquarius making a sextile to Chiron and Aries. Sextiles are considered to be harmonious. And so it's always kind of interesting when you have a harmonious aspect, but the planetary bodies that are being affected by this aspect, or are affecting this aspect. I guess you could look at it either way. Mars, being, in traditional astrology considered malefic, so, a little bit of a troublemaker. And then Chiron, this wounded healer, it's kind of like, oh, we've got Mars, this action oriented energy, and this, it can be a little confrontational, it can be volatile, is coming up, but it's making this harmonious aspect to this wound, this pain point. What does that mean for us? I personally feel like, your perspective and how you approach the energy of your life, like that's where you're a free agent, right? That's where you have free will. So it kind of depends on what your mentality is. For me, I think that this energy can be a huge catalyst when it comes to healing the wound. So Mars, we might get triggered. There might be something that happens on this day that is triggering and frustrating. It could be something that happens in the world, being an Aquarius, it could be something politically driven that happens in the world. It could be a conflict in the community. It could be a conflict. Maybe we butt heads with someone, on the street, or we have some, road rage dynamic. Those triggers that happen for us bring up opportunities for self-reflection. Why are we having the reaction that we're having? Why are we feeling triggered the way that we're triggering? Chiron, being the wounded healer, especially in Aries, wants us to acknowledge those things. Why is this a repetitive pattern? I'm really into Joe Dispenza in terms of how he talks about changing those neural pathways and seeing our power in those reactions. I'm going to use an example of something. So there's certain people in my life that have had really bad road rage. My dad's one of them. My partner of 14 years was one of them. And I used to also have really bad, anxiety and road rage in car situations specifically. And there was a period of my life when I was living in the Bay Area and I was working with dogs where I was like, man, I cannot continue to have this relationship with driving because I have to do so much of it. And I don't want to live this existence where I'm just so upset by it all the time. So I started doing these meditations awake, like not closed eyes meditations, but I was getting into like Joe Dispenza stuff and how to rewire your brain and how to have a different relationship with the things going on in your life by choice, like not just letting things happen to you, but choosing your perspective and changing the way that you relate to your life and your world. And, I'm a work in progress always. I don't see myself as never not being a work in progress, but the driving thing was really important to me. Like that specifically, I was like, I don't want to be somebody that has road rage and is affected by this because Bay Area traffic is just next level. And so I decided that I was going to start having this relationship with my life around driving where I just wasn't affected by it. And I wasn't going to put that energy out there. And I started changing the energy that I was putting out. I would start doing these meditations where I would imagine space between me and all the cars. I would actually imagine a box around my car and it emanating gold energy. And I would imagine it out of my heart too. And then I would imagine kind of like a wall between me and the other cars. And what I started noticing was that cars started to stay away from me. I wasn't having like these microaggressions and people riding my ass in the same way that I used to. And if it did start to happen, I would start doing that meditation again and they would back off. And it was just a really interesting way of watching the way that the energy we put out affects our reality. And so that was an opportunity for healing for me. Another thing that happened in the same context, we're like, okay, it's been years now. Like, I don't really have a relationship with driving that makes me angry. Like, I'm not saying there isn't sometimes somebody that'll cut in front of me and I'll be like, fuck you, dude. But I'm not like aggro on the road all the time. But I was driving to go meet up with a friend in Malibu and I was really bummed out at the traffic because, I live in Hollywood now. I'm driving from Hollywood to Malibu when there's traffic takes like an extra 20 minutes and it's just a bummer. But I really wanted to go see her in Malibu because it's Malibu, like it's great. And so I was like, it'll be worth the traffic and the drive or whatever. But it's a long drive. It's like an hour and 15 minutes. And I'm just like, oh, the gas for this, I'm kind of feeling negative about it, but I know it'll be worth it. And I'm talking to my mom while I'm driving. And this like cholo guy comes up in his Cadillac and he's like bumping music, and it's like a beautiful Cadillac. Like I'm just like, oh man, I wish I could take a ride. And it's like lifted, and he's got like, I think he was playing reggae and I've been listening to a lot of reggae again because it's just good for my nervous system. And he just, looked like he was having the best day ever. And I'm sitting here being like, oh, I can't wait to get out of this traffic. And I'm like, God, if I was in that car, I'd probably be having the best day ever too. But he also just looked unfazed. Like he was just taking the party with him, like the party was in his Cadillac and he was just did not care in California, sitting in traffic, just hanging out, having a good time, baseball cap on backwards, just stoked. And I just saw him and I was like, that's who I want to be everywhere I go, no matter what's happening around me. And I have a lot of work to do in that. I've got a lot of anxiety in certain situations that I have a lot of work to do, but seeing that and seeing it in traffic, so many people are so miserable in traffic and so angry, let it ruin their whole day. And that guy was like a prime example of like, here I am in my cool car, wearing my clothes, listening to my music and just loving life. And I'm like, that's who I want to be. Like, I want to be that way in my life. And just seeing him automatically like made me feel better. And then once I got kind of out of the initial freeway traffic, the GPS took me through the Malibu, like Santa Monica Mountains down to Malibu. And that drive is gorgeous. I love that drive. It's so beautiful. And I was so blissed out. I was so happy. And then you like get down to the ocean, and it's just gorgeous. And so that's just kind of a story of like an example when we have these transits like Mars meeting Chiron, but there's a harmonious opportunity for us to have those epiphanies of like seeing the cholo in the Cadillac, just enjoying life no matter what's going on around him. We always have that opportunity to stop and look at life that way. Obviously, I don't want to be insensitive to if bombs are literally falling on your doorstep or somebody's died or dying. And, obviously, like, I could get really deep with that and say all this bullshit, but it's like, if you're not going to feel good about that, like, it's okay to feel bad too. It's okay to be triggered. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to have those moments where you're just crying and feeling like shit. I've had a lot of them lately. And that's okay too. But they're opportunities, right? They're opportunities to find silver linings and gratitude once you work through it. So that's a very long way of talking about that transit and the way that we can utilize that energy over the next few days. March 8th, Friday, we've got Mercury making a conjunction to Neptune. So these transits are also really symbolic for things that are happening on a subconscious level around healing. We have a lot of opportunity for dream work and accessing parts of the subconscious that normally we might shove away or down. That stuff can kind of bubble up and come up through dreams or meditation, transcendental meditation. Since I'm in recovery and this is a recovery focused arena that I share these on, it's also really important for me to mention that Mercury conjunct Neptune in Pisces is also a great catalyst for relapse, wanting to escape reality, feeling maybe like you just can't handle the mundane anymore. And so this is a really positive time to reach out to support systems, go to a meeting, do things that cultivate positive spirituality experiences without the use of drugs or alcohol, or, addict-like tendencies. I haven't shared this yet on here, but I joined AA for the first time in November. I've been a dry alcoholic until then, which if you don't know what that means, it means I've been raw dogging sobriety. I haven't had a program up until November. And in November, when my life changed, I felt like I could really benefit from having community in that way. And I felt like I needed a program. I didn't feel like I was going to relapse, but I was starting to have thoughts about how great it would be to relapse. I didn't want to, but I was like, God, I wish that I still drank and smoked because this would be so much easier if I did. And just the fact that I had that thought made me go, okay, like I need support right now. And so I joined AA for the first time and I'm loving it. I wish that I had joined it sooner in the sense that the community that is coming into my life is just so great. And the mentality of everybody is so refreshing to be around. There's just such a empowering mentality. So, like Mercury conjunct Neptune, like this is an energy where we're trying to escape reality. And, I think that there's ways to escape reality that are not detrimental to our well-being. I think that meditation is one. I think that dream work is another. I feel like even just reading a book, a fantasy book, or watching a movie, music is a really great way. And to me, like, I think that I have a Pisces moon, I'm a Pisces dominant person. I think that for us, that world is real. So when I'm saying escape reality, I know that some people in my camp of spirituality will be like, well, that isn't really, this is not the real world. Like, this isn't real though. Like, this is the simulation. That's the real, the vast world is, that. And I think that I agree with that. Like, I think our dream world is just as real as our reality if we're going to get really blown out in how we talk about that. But let's be honest, like, just because something happens in your dreams doesn't mean it's translating to this world always. Sometimes it does. I've had that. I have psychic dreams, but I think that we have to walk between those two worlds carefully, right? And I think that there's a healthy way of doing it and an unhealthy way of doing it. And it's different for everybody. I'm not telling people what's healthy for them, but I think that those of us who know that we have substance abuse issues, we know that using alcohol to avoid things in this reality is not beneficial for us. And so those are things that, these transits can kind of bring up for us. And I think that, it's so good to do self-care activities around your spirituality. Sound baths, oh, such a good way. Like, book a sound bath on Friday the 8th. Like, that's such a good way to be in a Mercury Neptune conjunction. Water too, like going and being in water is really positive. The moon also enters Pisces on this day. So we're going to have a lot of Piscean energy over the next 2 days with that conjunction. On the 9th, we're going to have Mars squaring Uranus and the sun making a sextile to Uranus. So Mars in Aquarius is going to square Uranus and Taurus. This is a fixed square. And then the sun in Pisces making a sextile to Uranus. And then Mercury is going to enter Aries. An ugly face and an awkward thing, but I'm not stoked about this, to be honest. Mars square Uranus transits are days that I say just stay at home, don't leave the house. It sucks because the next day on the 10th, it's Oscars day, and I live in Hollywood now, so it's going to be crazy. And I actually do have to leave the house because the Sober Curator team is going to be in LA and we're going to go out to dinner. And I'm just like, I'm so not, it's just going to be crazy. It's going to be hectic. Accidents tend to happen with Mars squaring Uranus. Big changes happen. I don't want to be a negative person because I like optimism, but it's just, I feel like I've watched these transits year after year enough, and hard shit happens during this stuff. So I'm trying to be honest, about that. It's a good day to stay home. Mercury entering Aries. Mercury is going to be in Aries until it looks like May 16th, because we have Mercury stationing retrograde in Aries in April. Mercury is going to station retrograde in Aries on April 1st, on April Fool's Day. That's another, Mercury in Aries, not my favorite placement in many ways because it's very confrontational and very reactive. However, it's a great fight energy. It's a great fight for what you believe in, fight for what you want, go after what you want, assert the things that you need. Great action-oriented energy, but it's fighting energy too. So if you need some fight right now, it's going to be great. If you are wanting that stuff to be more tempered and pulled down a few notches, it can be rough, especially with these few days where we have the Mars square Uranus and Sun sextile Uranus. I personally am very nervous about this week. I'm like, what's going to happen? Let's go ahead and go to the 10th. So on the 10th, we have a new moon at 20 degrees of Pisces. New moons are a time for setting intentions around things that we want to call in and manifest into our lives. It's also a time where we can do releasing rituals. We can use the full moon and new moon in both of those ways. It just kind of depends on where it's hitting in our chart and, whether or not we, if you want to get really precise with your lunar magic, you look at kind of when exactly that new moon is happening. So the time of day that this new moon is happening in Pisces. I feel like this video is going to be like 2 hours long, so I'm just having a good time hanging out talking about this. I really need to do it. This is the thing. It sucks I'm going to be out and about because this is like I need to be doing some rituals. This is like a very poignant moon in my chart on a personal level. This new moon on the 10th that's happening at 20 degrees is happening at 5 a.m. Eastern time. So that's 3 hours ahead of where I am Pacific Standard Time. So 2 a.m. is when it's happening here. And, you know, if you want to get really precise with your magic, if you want to release something before the new moon, you do it during the balsamic phase, which is the 2 days before this new moon hits. So on the 8th and the 9th, that's a great time to do letting go, releasing. If you want to do more of the manifestation calling in, then you would do that on that point where the new moon actually hits. And then as it's waxing again towards, you know, coming out of the darkness. So then the next 2 days, the 10th and the 11th, in that time frame. So that's kind of, you know, how you can work with that. The energy of this new moon being in Pisces, I mean, we have that moon card, like that's a big energy. Let's see if I have that card. Oh, again, I don't. I shoved it back in the deck. But Pisces energy we've talked about a lot. So Pisces, you know, rules the subconscious. It rules our creativity in terms of poetry, music, the dream world, you know, how we're connected to our dreams, you know, fantasy. And so it's a good energy for creatives. Like if you, I mean, for me, like I have, you know, a lot of goals with my music and with my creative energy. And so this would be a great time for me to set intentions around that. Healing things in the subconscious on a deep level. If you have sobriety goals, like if you are newly in recovery and you have goals around your recovery, it's a really good energy for that. If you've been in recovery a long time and you're sober and you have goals around your relationship to your sobriety, and your spirituality, you know, Pisces rules spirituality. It's, you know, with Sagittarius, those two signs are kind of the spiritual keeper signs. And, you know, those are energies that are really positive for us to think about, you know, what is my relationship to my subconscious and the spiritual realm, you know, the imaginal realm. I know for some people, like a lot of earth dominant people, maybe not Taurus so much, but like Capricorn specifically, I guess, is very practical. And so sometimes, you know, I mean, I know so many spiritual Capricorns, but like if you're air or earth dominant, there's a lot of people that have those elements dominant where spirituality and religion especially is very uncomfortable for them because of the dogma and the politics of it. But I think that when we break out of the human construct around spirituality and we get to just what true spirituality is to me is just energy. It's our relationship to energy. And when we break away from dogma around energy and we just look at energy in terms of how it's affecting us or impacting us, and like what is our relationship to energy? What is our relationship to different types of energy? That's why I like astrology, because astrology basically classifies energy and it shows us how energy can be utilized and how energy is being utilized within our makeup. And it's not dogmatic in the sense there's no rules, it's just classifying it as how it's being expressed. And so I think that what's your relationship to energy? What's your relationship to spiritual energy? Is there dogma or human constructs that are getting in the way of you having a relationship to spirituality? Most people need it to make sense, especially science-driven people, which I consider myself to be a science-driven person. But I also have understood that there's a lot we don't know in terms of science, like what can be scientifically proven. And there's always a margin in science where something doesn't quite make sense. So what the fuck is that? You know, and just because the math makes sense here on Earth doesn't mean it's necessarily going to make sense in another dimension of reality, right? And the quantum physics world is mind blowing with that. So I think that, like, why do we need everything to make sense? Why do we need everything to be tangible? Why does 2 + 2 have to always equal 4 when we know that there's all this other math where there's these 0.1, 2, 5, 6, 8, whatever, you know, like what is all of that? So I don't claim I'm not very smart in comparison to mathematical geniuses and scientists and stuff. I mean, I do astrology, but I think that when we have Pisces energy so dominant, we're asking a lot of those types of questions in terms of what is reality, what is our relationship to reality? So, and not our relationship to just reality, but our relationship to what we question, like where do we go when we die? You know, those types of questions. I mean, that's very Sagittarius. Pisces feels more into it than asking the questions, but you know, Pisces wants to escape the questions more so and just be in that, you know, the feeling that we seek when we're drinking or doing drugs, where we're kind of just seeking to escape it all. That's more of the Piscean quality. There's also a ethereal feeling, you know, that we get, that we seek in Pisces. So, you know, kind of reflecting on that, being like, what's our relationship to that? Is a new moon kind of theme for us. The day of the new moon, we also have Mercury in Pisces making a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. So again, this is an opportunity for us to transmute and transform our perspective on all of these themes that I just talked about. March 11th, Venus is going to enter Pisces. And so again, we're going to have so much energy in Pisces. We see her at the 29th degree here. So let's get her. Where is she now? Now she's at 0 degrees Pisces. So Mercury's not in Pisces anymore. So we'll have, you know, Mercury in Aries, the Sun and Neptune, Saturn and Venus will all be in Pisces. And so again, you know, Venus and Pisces, we have so many themes that are the same as everything that I've been talking about, but now it comes into the relationship energy more actively. And we, in our relationships, seek emotional connection. We seek deep connection. We can also be deceived easily in relationship dynamics. Pisces rules illusions and deception. And so, you know, Mercury having been in Pisces, it's a really powerful energy for lying. People can lie and we can be gullible towards that. It's hard for us to see the truth with Mercury and Pisces. Venus and Pisces can do kind of a similar thing where maybe we want to believe a fantasy about somebody versus really seeing how it truly is. We want to feel this kind of escapist romantic feeling rather than looking at it for how it is. With that though, we could also have a deep connection with someone if they are an honest person. If they're a genuinely honest, good person, Venus and Pisces can be a really great energy for romance and connecting on a deeper spiritual level with somebody for sure. It's also a great energy for musicians and artists to channel their creative, imaginal impulses into reality with Saturn here. Great art energy. Venus is going to be in Pisces for the rest of March before entering Aries at the beginning of April. Venus and Mercury together in Aries in April. That's going to be intense. I'm kind of excited about the fact Venus is entering that mix. So, all right, let's go ahead and get to Tuesday. We don't have any major things happening outside of just lunar transits. We have a first quarter moon, it looks like, in Taurus on the 14th. First quarter moons are great for, is that what's happening? Yeah. So that's a great energy for, I love the moon in Taurus because it's exalted in Taurus, and Venus is exalted in Pisces. So Venus is exalted right now with the moon exalted on that day. And it's a great energy for art projects. It's also a really good energy for people that love to connect through food. And I'm trying to think. Nature, you know, spending time out in nature with plants, hiking, all that kind of stuff. Let's go to it's saying the first quarter moon starts in Taurus and then it goes into Gemini. I'm sorry, that was wrong. The first quarter moon is happening in Gemini. That makes sense. The sun in Pisces. I was thinking that sounded wrong. First quarter moon's happening in Gemini. So again, setting intentions. Gemini energy rules the mind. So it has to do with the mind, communication. If there's anything that we want to set intentions towards around how we're communicating and how we're perceiving knowledge or information, that's really positive as well. We're ingressing. That Taurus energy we can still use in that way. I was wrong. The first quarter moon's in mutable energy, but we can still utilize that. Moon in Taurus is still great. Let's see, any other, this is all lunar stuff. We don't have anything major until the 17th. 17th, we have the sun in Pisces making that conjunction to Neptune. So we had that Mercury sun conjunction, and now, I'm sorry, Mercury Neptune conjunction, and now we're having the sun Neptune conjunction. And again, like Piscean energy, it can be hard for discernment, hard to see the truth. We've got Venus kind of making her way up to Saturn. Art is enhanced, music, the imagination, opportunity for relapse and wanting to escape reality. These themes are just so prominent in March. But again, it's great for us envisioning the reality that we would like to live and seeing, you know, now that we've got some action-oriented energy with Mercury and Aries, how can we take action? How can we realistically take action? Mars and Aquarius too might be helping us a little bit in terms of seeing, you know, can we rely on our community? Can we network in our community in a way that helps, you know, get us moving forward? Let's see. So now we're going to go to the 18th here. Nothing major until the 19th. So the 19th, we have the spring equinox where the sun enters Aries. This is also known as Ostera. And this is considered to be the astrological new year. So before the Gregorian calendar, this was New Year's. This was when the sun entered Aries. Happy astrological new year and happy Aries season. I love Aries. Most of my close people in my life are Aries dominant people. Aries, you know, we spent a lot of time talking about at the beginning of this, so I won't get into it, but that is, you know, that's the big deal on this day. One of the things I also am really enjoying about this is that the moon is going to enter Leo. So Aries and Leo are the most compatible signs for each other because they're both fire energies. And Sagittarius also is very compatible with Aries and Leo, but Aries and Leo are said to be like this, which is why I have a lot of them in my life. And so I love the fact that the moon is going to be in Leo on the day that the sun enters Aries. I think that's really, really great. And happy birthday to all my Aries people. So the 20th, we have the next transit where Mercury and Aries is going to make a conjunction to Chiron and Aries. And Mercury is, you know, kind of been in this orb of influence already and impacting that. And, you know, again, you know, we talked about Chiron earlier on the node and how Chiron brings up these wounds around identity. Mercury is going to be in the mix. How do we communicate about this? How do we talk about it? How do we have honest communication, straightforward communication, direct communication? It can be very confrontational. It can be triggering. So those are things that, you know, on the 20th, we might be feeling, especially now that the sun's in the mix, you know, with Aries, we have a lot of power. And then, you know, Mercury is going to station retrograde, you know, at the beginning of April. So this conjunction with Chiron is probably going to be a little bit of a catalyst as to some of the things that we end up sorting out during the Mercury retrograde. So the 20th, keep your eye on that day and kind of what comes out of it. The 21st, we have the sun in Aries making a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius, and Venus in Pisces making a conjunction to Saturn in Pisces. So relationships really get highlighted with this Venus-Saturn conjunction. And, you know, Saturn wants, when it comes to relationships, Saturn wants commitment and wants tradition. And Venus and Saturn coming together could be a make or break time. So it's either this relationship is going to evolve and going to move into this more solidified, committed area, or if it's not going to, then we know that it's going to dissolve, which is Piscean, and that, you know, things are going to have to move into this other direction where things are not together anymore. You're not together anymore. In terms of art, you know, Venus can also rule beauty and art. Saturn can also represent, you know, this need to solidify something in that way. So you might feel inclined towards wanting to change something about how you look or adorning yourself in some way. There's some, you know, art kind of, I'm starting to get tired. I'm sorry, I'm fading. There's a focus on art and kind of how we're putting that into the world. If you are an artist or a musician, this could be a really great time for your creativity or releasing something into the world in that way. there's a lot of positive energy there. But again, Saturn transits are also really hard. So, there could be pressure on somebody or something in regards to a relationship dynamic or an artistic project. There's a lot of pressure with Saturn sometimes, and blockages. We feel sometimes stifled or blocked in certain ways. That's why, it's really dependent on the work that you've done as an individual and the work that you've done in your relationship with somebody else and where you're both at. This, energy is also opposite the asteroid Juno. Juno represents marriage. And so again, there's a lot of pressure, Saturn and Pisces transits put a lot of pressure on relationships. They're not fun transits usually. But again, like depending on where you're at in your relationship, there could be a leveling up that happens that could also be really positive if the people are willing to do that work. If the people aren't willing to do that work, or if somebody in the relationship isn't willing to level up in some way or do the work in some way, then that's when the true colors really come out and the relationship starts to disintegrate or dissolve. So yeah, there's pressure, pressure on all of that stuff. Mars is going to enter Pisces on the 22nd, and not my favorite energy. I mean, Mars is at 29 degrees Aquarius, but that's going to be happening in the evening on the 22nd. And, Mars in Pisces tends to be confused, elusive and confused. I think that, again, artistically, there's a lot of opportunity here to drive projects forward or to channel your energy creatively in a positive way. But again, that Pisces energy, there's a lot of opportunity for us to feel confused, lost, wanting to escape reality. It can feel kind of like we're pushing through fog, with this. So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting kind of feeling there. Dreams, again, get enhanced, in a specific way where we might be kind of like, what does this all mean? What am I doing? How am I moving forward? Let's see here. The 23rd, we don't have anything major. The 24th, we have Venus in Pisces making a sextile to Jupiter and Taurus. This is a really positive energy for relationships and for growth in relationships. So if Saturn, and Venus brought up a lot of things for you in a way where you're like, this needs to move forward. We need to level up in this way. And let's say that you're in a partnership where that's working out for you guys. Jupiter's here to help that growth and help that expansion. And even if it didn't work out that way and you're not together anymore, Jupiter's here to help expand and grow and push beyond. So everybody's growing, whether it's apart or together, everybody's growing. The other thing too with this is it's really good for, again, creative energy. So, bringing this kind of idea into the reality, into the forefront, and being open to growth creatively. Let's see here. Anything else? The 25th, we've got, so this is the day that we have our lunar eclipse in Libra. So this is eclipse energy starting here. And let's see, it's at 5 degrees Libra. We can get the chart to be exact if we want. Wow, it's happening right at 12 a.m. It's kind of crazy. Sorry, I'm just getting us this chart here because I think that since it's an eclipse, it would be fun to have the chart up for the visual. Let's see. I hope I'm doing this the right way because I'm paying attention to what it looks like. I'm just getting the time right. Okay, that's close enough, I think. So we've got the eclipse at 5 degrees. So we can see the sun at 5 degrees Aries. And it's interesting though, the node is not at, okay. Says it's not a total lunar eclipse. So eclipse energy is a portal that is being open for up to 6 months at a time. And whatever the, kind of catalyst, it's influencing that amount of time. So if we look at this chart, we see Let's see what else is impacted here. We've got, it looks like an inconjunct to Saturn and Pisces later in the day and an inconjunct to Jupiter and Taurus later in the day. So Saturn and Jupiter are going to kind of be playing into these themes. For me, like intuitively with where Saturn is and where Jupiter is, like Jupiter and practical Taurus and Saturn and kind of elusive Pisces, discerning things right now is really challenging. Discerning what's real is really challenging. Our feelings with a lot of this Piscean energy have been driving the bus. And that's not always good because when our feelings are driving the bus, we're reactive. We don't always see things clearly with Pisces energy because we're just so buried in our emotions. And this eclipse, you know, Sun in Aries, Moon in Libra, we're examining the identity again. So at the beginning of this, we were talking about identity of self versus partnership or versus the other. And then we've been in this like swamp of emotion and swamp of escapism, you know, like not really wanting to look at things from this practical standpoint. We're looking at them from more of this emotional standpoint. And emotions can be really informative. They can be really positive in informing us that something is right or something is not right. But emotions are really complex because we have a gut feeling about something. And then we have our mental process in deciphering what we think that means. And those two things can be in conflict, and that can spark an emotion that we're not sure what sometimes is a gut instinct versus an emotional reaction. And I think that this whole month of March is a soup of that. And when we get to this eclipse at the end of the month, there's kind of this breaking open that happens where we're starting to get clear on what we want based off of all of this confusing energy that we've been in. But we're not totally out of the woods because we still have Saturn, Mars, and Venus and Neptune here. And you know, Aries is really reactive. Aries can be very self-oriented and very reactive. And with the South Node and the Moon in Libra, we don't really want to care about how another person is feeling about how we are going about things. Like this is very much like, this is what I need, this is who I am, and I want to be self-reliant and self-oriented right now. Mercury, you know, and Chiron are still kind of in this mix, not necessarily, you know, with that exact eclipse, but they're still present in this energy. And so again, the wounds, the perspectives, who am I, you know, all of that is coming up into the forefront of this. Juno at 8 degrees, you know, is like making kind of this, oh man, there's an 8-degree Pallas Athena, you know, it's like within an orb of influence of this eclipse. Relationships are definitely being examined. And, you know, it is make or break time for a lot of us in terms of how we're relating and how we're relating to ourselves. So whatever epiphany and whatever changes we're making during March are going to have a lifetime effect on us. I think that's all I'm going to say about that. It's a intense time. I'm just examining my own thoughts with that. Okay. The 28th. I'm sorry, let's go here. We have our next transit, which is Venus making a sextile to Uranus and Taurus. Uranus, change maker, Venus, relationships. And again, you know, sextiles can be really harmonious, positive changes happening in relationship, but sudden too. And sometimes the positive change that happens doesn't feel positive when it's happening. So I think that that's something too that you have to remember, that there's longevity in change in terms of the ripple effect of how it impacts our life. What feels really negative can also result in something really positive. I've been told a lot of those stories since I've been going through my life changes where people are like, it was so terrible, but it led me to all these great things. And it's just, I'm so grateful for it. And I try to carry that mentality with me when things that are really challenging and difficult are happening in my life, because I don't really feel like I have any other option. You know, I don't want to flail and drown and feel sorry for myself. Even though I have those days and I need to feel those things sometimes, once I come full circle, I'm very much like, okay, like what can I do with this? How can I move forward positively in this? And I think that's Venus, is really good at helping us stay optimistic if we choose to have that perspective, right? Because that's where the power is us choosing to have those perspectives. So positive changes happening there. We also are, there's opportunity for positive connections with other people. It looks like those are all the major transits for March. We have Easter happening on the 31st. So if you celebrate Easter, and yeah, it's an interesting month. I mean, Pisces season is always interesting in the sense that we are, more emotional. We're more in touch with our emotions. We're more in touch with our imagination. Our dreams are more enhanced in certain ways. But we have so much energy in Pisces that isn't always so emphasized, like having the, Mars entering Pisces, Venus in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces. Like it's just very elevated for the first half of March. And then, as we start to move out of that into Aries season, we even still have, some of those Piscean placements. And so again, I guess the biggest advice that I have for all of us is that our emotions change a lot. And what feels a certain way, it's temporary. Astrology shows us that it's temporary. Like these things are going to shift into these other territories and we're going to have different feelings. And so sometimes it's not positive to act on our feelings. Sometimes it is. Sometimes like the feelings are a catalyst towards things that we need to change. But sometimes we can be reactive and impulsive, especially during Aries transits, where was it really necessary to have that big of a reaction about that? Or should we have sat with those feelings and really worked through them and then chosen how to have that reaction? It's hard to do that when we don't have a lot of earth energy. Earth energy slows everything down. And so when we have more planets in an earth element, it's easier for us to slow down. But Jupiter and Uranus are in Taurus, which is the energy that would normally slow us down. Taurus would be anchoring us. And we've got two planets that are all about change and growth and pushing us out of comfort zones. So it's just we're not in a slow place right now. We're in we're in like let's take the chessboard and throw it up in the air and see what happens. Like that's literally the astrology right now. And it's happening for a lot of us. It's not, none of us are safe, I guess, is what I will say about that. It's all happening in different parts of our birth chart. So, whether it's your relationship, your career, your relationships within your career, or your family relationships, your kids, like that's all determined on where these things are happening in your personal birth chart, which I'm offering readings again for the first time in like 3 years. So I would say if you enjoy kind of the way that I talk about this stuff and you want to get an individual reading with me, you can go to my website, ladyofleosure.com, and fill out a contact form, or you can email me at analisa6@ladyofleosure.com. And it's Leosure, Leo-jure. I contribute content for the sobercurator.com and then ladyofleosure.com. I try to do these every month, but I don't get paid to do these. So if things take a turn in my life and I need to focus on my life, I focus on my life. And maybe someday I will get paid to do these and I could focus on it full time. That would be awesome. But until then, they kind of come last in the hierarchy of needs. But I really enjoy doing them. I love astrology. I continue to see it be accurate and going through a whole life change. Did I see it in the stars? Yes I did. Was I hoping it was this? No, did not want it to be this. Was praying that it wouldn't be. It was. I'm here. I'm really grateful that I have astrology to lean on during these changes because it makes me feel like it's all meant to happen, even though it's incredibly frustrating and painful. It's a wisdom that I don't understand, but it's fun to try to make sense of it. All right, I will see you guys next month. Keep your eye out as I start working my way through each individual horoscope for the month of March.